Like it was so hot, and then more people started showing up. It was cold last week, so they turned the heaters on, and now it's mid low 80s. Yeah.
Just depends. It's mid.
I'm feeling my body is just having a hard time catching up. It goes mid to low 80s and then drops off into the 50s. Oh, everyone's gonna be sick.
I forget where it was. There was a meme somewhere I saw. And it basically applies to almost all the Central US. It's like seasons in a day kind of things like. Ugh. Not last week, the week before, we had literally a 30-degree temperature change in 24 hours, where it was like, okay, the lows are in the 60s. Now they're 39. Like, yeah, it's like that's.
I just know that it was like there was snow, rain, and then it was like 70 in one day.
Okay, crimes against persons.
Like it doesn't feel too bad out there, but it's good there's no wind. Yeah.
Violence. Violence is on the ticket for today's topic. We're gonna talk about violence. You grab some water and then we'll get rolling, I guess, in about 5 minutes. I guess people.
I know.
Who's rolling?
Like I saw this in the shirt. I'm just like, I don't care. Maybe people can just deal with it. I don't stink. But that's well, I guarantee bathroom. I guarantee that's why yeah. I finally brought chance. I'm finally married. I didn't know that. I always bring my stuff in the things. Like if I know like weather is gonna change really bad, then like I just go home and like grab stuff. But I'm only an hour away, so maybe gonna need it for you. Maybe we switch. So like that would be fine. No, you're not cold. Yeah, I brought my electric blanket up here. I forgot. I mean, that.
Let's see if more people are lined up to come in. That's the two. Okay. Let's start out. We're gonna start talking about violence. I want you guys to be thinking about this. How do I want to attack it today? Because usually what I'd like to do is we'll start from like society and work into the point where we get, okay, here's what's going on in society, here's relevant issues. Big discussions, questions, statutes as they currently exist. I think today we'll talk about, we'll do it from maybe an applied side, like we'll start like you daily lives. Then we'll jump into statutes and then we'll break it off into society, kind of flip it a little bit. See, hey guys, whether you guys like that makes any difference at all for you all whatsoever. Sometimes it's like the way that you break it down matters to people.
Waiting.
Oh, we got someone coming in. Excellent. Look, here's so many people pop in here. I was missing about half my class out of my intro this morning because it's Monday after fall break. That's good timing.
Everyone's still at home.
Yeah, it's like I just now got my computer started. It's about 11 o'clock. I guess I should turn it on.
Yeah, my school in my hometown, they were off today, and I was like, I curse you.
That's horrible. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Otherwise, that'd have been the excuse against it. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, no, my hometown, they had 3 days for fall break, and today's their last day. This is that.
Wow. So they really turn their fall break into spring break.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, we're gonna get there. I'd say informally, a lot of your classes will probably argue there. Is that kind of true?
All of my classes were canceled. Except this one last week. Pretty much. Except Monday. Monday was full.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
Well, it's one of those things that, yes, you're getting what you pay for. Interesting, because my intro today, what I did is, I've been telling for like last couple, probably about 4 weeks, it's like, I need to set up a time for Chief Bell. Come in, so campus police chief, come in and talk about opportunities here. Since they're intro, it's like they're at that point where it's like they start thinking about that and how they can make the best use of those opportunities. Has anyone ever talked to you about those opportunities?
on campus.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not on campus.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so Chief Bell, if you're interested in getting involved in any type of policing, that is a great opportunity to start getting your feet wet, get some real experience on the job while still a student. He'll have more details than I, even though I just heard it like 2 hours ago. We'll talk about it for about an hour, because he goes high detail. In terms of opportunities, it's like, you could be reserve officer, you could be dispatch, there's other things that are there, but it's like in terms of opportunities to go get your certifications for those types of fields, opportunities to actually get that field work side while you're going through that education side. What it does for you in terms of marketability, if you think about policing, is huge. And so, if that is something that interests you, let me know. We talked quite a bit about that. Like even in here, that's something I talk about every now and again, like the whole, I think I did this in here too, the value of work versus the value of education. It's like, it's the same thing. And work, though, they can fire you. Here, you're paying for the opportunity to be here. So it's like, what's the difference between someone who pays to be here and someone who's earned the opportunity to be here, kind of thing? It's like, that's a difference that you all make, not any of us. It's how you distinguish yourself, and marketability is a huge factor when you start getting beyond here. And so those extra work opportunities, those are the easiest way to clearly identify yourself as standing out from those who paid for a piece of paper, that kind of thing. I'll tell you about a personal experience while I'm still waiting for a couple more people to roll in. Hop in. Whenever I was going through my PhD program, well, there's a few different lessons about culture and community, but aside from that, one of the most interesting things to me was that we had one student who had gotten into the program based on who they were friends with, meaning that they're family friends with a leading person in the field, our field, and had been for the last 50 years. So it's like considerable weight behind that person's name, considerable ties to the people who are running that program at the time, which aren't running it now. But that door was open to that person based on that, not based on buildings. Now, as any good program, that person did not make it through, right? So what you're talking for them, she's well off. So it's like no real harm came as a result of it. For most people, what that is, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars in debt, no reward at the end of it. But at the same time, it's like some of those people do make it through. When you're on the market competing against those, you don't want to be confused for those at all, right? You want to stand out from those people as much as you can. Whether you're talking the policing opportunities, research opportunities, just opportunities to increase your marketability, make yourself stand out. It's like you need to be jumping on those whenever you get a chance. So be thinking about that. Not an immediate rush for most of you, but if you're less than 2 semesters from graduating, you should be thinking about that right now and be moving. Right? Make sure that you've covered as many of your bases as you can reasonably in the time you have left. But that's enough ranting about that. Tell me what's going on in the world. Yeah, there's still a whole bunch of stuff going on in Israel. It's interesting to see, it's like where money goes, because it's that's probably the thing that's always interesting to me, is because you see, it's like, from our perspective, usually what we do is we just throw money at it, which is taxpayer money, and it's like, how much have we thrown at different countries in the last couple of years? It's just amazing to me, but yeah, those prospects are not good in terms of war prospects. Those are things you should also consider. Big stuff going on right now. It feels kind of quiet, so things should smooth out. If I'm behind in grading in here, which I probably am, I'll be catching up with that by this weekend. That's my next task, is catching up with all the stuff I'm putting behind. But let's get into talking about violence. We talked a little about murder. Murder itself is a violent act, but since it's probably the easiest one, we usually start there. I just refer to murder as the easiest one. Why did I say that?
It's the easiest to understand law-wise.
Maybe.
Intentional murder, unintentional murder kind of leads to where you're going,
Yeah.
but it's harder to categorize other types of violence.
Yeah. So in terms of really solid, clearly identifiable ways to define crimes, it's one of the easiest ones we have. You saw how long we took in terms of debating. It's like, okay, here are the different elements that are mentioned here. Here's how much thought we have to put into each one of these facets before we can come to an understanding of, are we really talking about murder? Right? That's the same principle for every other crime we'll deal with. And here's where you'll start to get a little bit into the decentralized nature of our systems. It came up in policing, we were talking a little bit earlier. In the intro class, you'll see it in policing, you'll see it in course even more so. Can we talk about decentralized stuff in here yet? Because it's something you probably should have mentioned to you in a different course. And if I'm mentioning it to you for the first time now, it's like, it's an important facet. I don't think I talked too much about it in here because this is law. This isn't like understanding the whole system. Did I ask you guys what type of governmental system we have? Maybe like the first day. Usually what I'm trying to gauge is that is like, do you understand decentralization, what it is? So here, most all of our systems operate independently, right? If you look at the law statutes here in this state, they're going to be similar, but they will be different from every state that's on its borders, right? And even more so the farther out you get the differences in distance, you'll see that those differences will magnify. Basically how you fit that in with governmental structure is the idea is we want power to remain with the people, so we try to keep it as close to them as we can, which means as you're doing that, there'll be times that you vote on, well, of course, legislators, but also there'll be times that you vote on legislation yourself, right? As that happens, you change the laws that only apply to you, whatever that jurisdiction is. And people are as variable as problems as places, kind of thing. So there's some commonality with many differences. Yeah. So the thresholds that we start identifying here, some will be federal, tend to go federal because they're going to be the broadest. Sometimes they go into state because they're very specific. As we start talking about violence, I'll point that out. Why it's an easier crime than violence, murder is. Lick die or is it the lick die? I think it's the lick die. Corroborating evidence, your body of proof. In that in murder, you're actually dealing with a corpse usually, kind of thing. That one's really easy to identify. This person's dead, right? It's like, okay. That's not always the outcome of this. Other basic knowledge you should probably have. Victim versus victimizer. What is the relationship between a victim and a victimizer?
The victimizer did some violent action to a victim.
Wrongdoer. I like it. That does not look like a D at all. Still doesn't, but closer. Okay, that would make this person the,
I mean.
yeah,
So,
see if I can spell that word correctly. I think I did. Ooh. Whole question. Have I asked this question of you before? Have you ever been in a fight? Have I ever asked that question of you before? Okay,
I
good.
mean,
And how many of you, yeah, how many of you raised your hands?
Physical.
Yes, a physical fight.
you
Good.
count sibling fights?
Hell yeah, I count siblings. Those are the worst ones. My older brother's 8 years older than me. So when you're 4 and he's 12, and you do something he doesn't like, it's really hard to fight back. There were a number of times I went airborne kind of thing. Yeah, that counts. That definitely counts. Right, so all of you have some understanding of this. As a general rule in our field, something you might not think about so often is this in terms of same person? Question mark. When you start trying to get to this level of resolution in terms of people and their actions, you're gonna see a heavy overlap. Those who are doing wrong, those who are victimized. There is a heavy overlap. Don't remember what the exact overlap is, but it's something. It's on the border of 80%. It may be higher than that. It's been probably been 5 years since I've looked at that. This is a general rule that's been applicable since the dawn of this field, really. Those who are involved in bad actions can sometimes be targeted just because they're involved in bad actions, that kind of thing. At least the people you're hanging out with, if you're doing this, might be the kind that turn around and do this to you, right? And so from the outset, it's not just this one relationship, and it's certainly not just this one direction kind of thing where the victimizer is harming the victim. It's far more complex than that. When we get into it, it's trying to figure out basically everything that happened, everything you won't know when you go into a situation, police officer, everything you got to try to figure out if you're a lawyer, because yeah, there's a lot of investigation that goes on involved in this stuff. Okay. So not simply one relationship and not one direction. It's going to be or equal and more than just two parties. Okay. So where we start getting into the practical applications of these things. I wrote that kind of pretty for me. I don't often write things nice. All right, so let's go with fighting. Is it a crime? Depends. Okay, we'll do a poll. Raise your hand if yes. Right. Got one. Of course it depends, but as a general rule, fighting.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, yes. All of you online, would you agree that as a general rule, fighting is a crime? I got one yes. We'll give him a second and see who's actually here. Cortez is here. Brandon's here. I always like doing like, it's like, who's a spectator? Who has the ability to chat? You do it on your phone, it's like, do you have that ability? I don't know, I never do it on my phone. So, yeah, there's some opportunities there for getting out of that, but. The general rule. Yes. Okay, so what kind of fighting are we talking about? What kind of fighting do you guys do?
Verbal.
Mm-hmm. Got verbal,
Physical.
physical. Any other types?
Sexual.
Yeah, there's a whole area of sex crime. We'll get into those eventually. That probably won't be today. Maybe next. That's sex-based crime.
Someone's in the waiting room.
Oh. Thank you for pointing that out. Hopefully they weren't in there long because I wasn't looking at that. Okay, so we got some sex-based ones. Okay,
Domestic.
domestic. We'll get there. Let's think about it this way. What do these things do? Okay, we'll start with the physical stuff. What happens if there's physical violence?
You're punching, you're hitting.
Okay, acts of punch, kick, etc. Harm. What kind of harm are we looking at with those types of things?
Physical damage.
Yeah,
Bones, bleeding.
broken bones, blood. Let's see. What kinds of things? Swelling. Yeah. Bruises, all kinds of fun stuff, right? Yeah. Yeah. I reversed these. I just noticed that. I wrote that wrong one. Say physical here. This one goes verbal. I should have left space there. Okay, now we're talking about verbal. What do we do?
Yelling, like insults. Slurs.
Yeah.
Doing like defamatory statements. False accusations.
Maybe, maybe. Well, it's like, you can start getting into that, but
Kind of more online fighting.
yeah, and well, you start getting into that, or it's like other crimes, like the false reporting of crimes, that kind of stuff. Because that'll happen too. You'll get some of that stuff. Or it's like how many different arguments have started because of accusations kind of thing. Okay, that's a whole lot of arguments, right? Did you do this? Did you do that? Yeah, no, maybe. Okay. What kind of harm do you get?
Feeling hurt. Emotional damage.
Feelings. Emotions.
Mental.
State. There you go. That's a big one, right? Take say this one alone. Of course, you can cross that one or this one, or just the format. Start questioning someone's self-worth, right? Those kinds of things. Not markers for good relationships, but they're definitely markers in some relationships. Okay. Yes, correct. You both crimes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We're just getting warmed up.
I like it. Oh, this is dying on me. Questions about context? Do we need to identify specific context for any of these things?
Not all verbal, not every insult is.
Okay. necessarily.
Well, it depends, because if you insult a cop, they can arrest you.
Can we?
That's what they do.
Okay,
So if they can't, then they're not, then they're doing something that they should be doing.
maybe. Maybe. Well, why would there be, ooh, we'll talk about that one first. Why is there a distinction there? Right? Why would there be a justification for official action for this one? Would it be because of what you said?
It's related to someone discriminatory act,
It can be.
just like verbal.
I mean, I can show you, like we said, where videos where, once the insults start coming, you'll see that maybe escalation of force used in that instance, right? Arrest coming kind of thing. I can also show you, instances where you can have groups of people, leveling some of the worst of those at officers based on the worst of things you could probably think about to insult people on, right? And in many of those instances, you won't see any actions done. Okay? Now, we start adding in context, it's like we can break off into a whole bunch of different types of crimes, like some of these you're mentioning, sex-based or domestic stuff. And all those are gonna have a very, very direct bearing on the specific types of statutes you look at when you start to prosecute this kind of thing. But as a general rule, people without kind of this right here, like, do we still need a system to punish this and this? That one, there's probably not much of a question about. Someone's physically violent. Yeah, we should do something to stop that because we don't want violence in the society. How about that one?
Verbal.
I think to an extent.
It's just usually when verbal altercations lead to physical altercations, and that's when they get like, but I don't know about this, like strictly for verbal altercations being,
This
maybe
one.
like public abuse, which would be
Ah,
like if it's affecting other people that are outside of this situation.
that's weird. That is definitely an element of it.
So you can't be punished for just.
Yeah,
In
but
our-
we already started to hit a hell of a quandary right now. It's like, okay, you got this freedom of speech type of thing. We've also said you don't have free from consequences of your actions, speech to action, I guess, maybe. And then there's a whole lot of stuff that's just directly related to speech itself, but here, we're trying to deal with violence. We haven't even gotten into like the speech aspect that's speech itself. We're just dealing with the aspects that deal with violence. And so it gets sport. Yes, sports come in here some too. What was I was thinking about that earlier? Decentralization. One of the most interesting things about decentralization is a side note, and I'll jump back into this. You mentioned sports, so I'll mention it for a second. Okay. How many of you have a sport that you watch without exception? Like there's a team that if they're playing, you'll go out of your way to try to make sure you can watch it. Raise your hands. That surprises me. Okay. You know people who are like that though. Okay, there we go. Good. Good. If I said, okay, their favorite team, do they have a rival? Does that rivalry affect how they deal with people from those areas? Yes, right? Okay. One of the most interesting things to me is like, okay, you got arguments for centralized systems and against decentralized, or I should say, for centralized or for decentralized. The decentralized thing, what it does, probably the best thing that it does is it keeps stuff like that from being what influences how the systems work, right? So it's like, We had a centralized system. Would you want your rival, someone from your rivalry area, to come and judge you or to impose laws on you, how they see fit? Because there's some discretion there. As you move to decentralized, what you end up with is areas stand on their own, so they have to answer to people there. Just fleeting thought. Physical versus verbal violence. Let's stop. We'll stop this right here. We'll hold this because this next part will help come to my mind. 25. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Dealing with violence, there are certain things that come about as it progresses. Try this one. Assault, battery. You've heard those terms. Yes? What is this referring to?
Like physically hurt someone.
What else? I'm gonna show you something.
Forcible touch.
Towards touch.
Intent to hurt someone?
Intent. It's a harm. Okay. Get that one fixed. I might need to get some more of those. Okay. Now, I'm gonna tell you something and then I'll explain. These are two separate things. These are two separate charges, two separate events. They're used together so frequently that we usually say them together, right? You were looking at a police report or something like that, it's not usually, most of the time you'll see both assault and battery. Right? They're two different things. We deal with them in conjunction frequently because they occur together frequently. But also with the way the statutes are written, we've been talking about lesser included crimes, that kind of thing. All of our statutes are going to be like that. They're going to have some degree of overlap. So identifying where those cut points are, very, very, very important. Why? Because depending on the state, like the difference between these things can be minimal to almost non-existent to like the difference between night and day. Verbal and physical. As a general rule, to show you the statutes, you'll see, yeah, there's still some overlap there. Right? But the general rule, assault's the verbal part. Battery's when it gets physical. Okay. How do we know when we've assaulted somebody? Now, if I do example statutes. Okay. Share screen. Yeah, this is screen. I don't have anything. Do I? Come back to that one. Aggravated. Give me the statutes. There we go. I don't like that you did that. I did not ask you to do that.
You have to put that one on a different
Yeah.
screen.
Escape. Let's drag you off over here and see. Can't see it. Hold on a second. We'll wait for a head come about a phone. I'm staring at you.
Oh, wait, what? Sorry.
You're fine. Can you duck down for just a quick second? Actually, stay right where you're at.
Oh, yeah.
See if that does it. It's still doing.
Oh.
All right. Well, that was a whole lot of do for nothing. All right, let's just stop this and I'll just make it bigger. Stop the share. Give me this, get rid of that. Bring this back over here. And enable. I love systems. They're always fun to work with. Yes, just show me this. Okay, here, Oklahoma statutes. So it's willful or and unlawful attempt or offer with force or violence to do a corporal hurt to another. Attempt or offer. Right? Meaning unsuccessful battery or threat. Right? Have you ever been threatened before? I'm surprised I didn't see everybody's hands go pretty fast. Yeah. Like, how many times have you heard, I'm gonna kick your, it's like, yeah, I've heard that one. But, okay. Battery. Any willful or unlawful use of force or violence upon person of another. Starts going into some self-defense stuff. We'll deal with that some other time. I talked a little bit about that last class. We'll get to that one just good. This is physical. This is verbal. Where do we draw those lines of communications? That's kind of a hard thing. Right? This, that's all you need for this. How many times have we all crossed that line? Some. Whether or not that was there. Right? Ooh, here's a fun one. Any communications people in here? Couldn't remember. It's like I've had one in one of my classes in the last couple semesters. You guys ever seen this? It's like person one, person two kind of thing. Communication triangle. Anytime you communicate something with anybody, this is communication stuff. It's you'll send this message to another person. You're trying to convey that message. They're interpreting whatever it is you're saying. And at some point, you need to get this feedback right here to see if they actually got what you were trying to send to this person, right? If you don't have that, that's miscommunication. This is one person and one message kind of thing. It's this complicated. Every time we communicate with somebody, it's very, very, very difficult. So how can you tell when that friendly banter at a bar says, I'm gonna kick your ass if you do this again, it's friendly banter or if it's real? How do you tell that?
Tone.
Okay, tone,
Body language.
body language. Yes. Yeah, other behaviors. Yeah, it's like, what do you know of this person? What are they doing right now? What have they done? You know about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Their visual capacity to kick your ass.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a guy who's 4'8". And I'm so worried about that. Guy's 6'8". Yeah, there's some differences there.
Also, the things they're threatening, like if it's like, oh, I'll punch you, or if it's like, I will pull a gun on you,
Yeah.
that's different.
Specific threats used. Okay, and these are all things that you guys have experienced in your daily lives at some point, yes? There's been a threat that's come your way at some point in the last at least 18 years of your life. Okay. We've got to navigate that. Threats exist. You gotta figure out which ones come to this level. We'll work on that. We'll switch to the other side. It's a little bit more clearly identifiable. How do you know when you cross that line?
As soon as your hands. Someone.
Touch. To what degree, to what level do I need to touch something?
Just intentional touching. You meant to put your hands on
Okay,
something.
we need this plus this, yes. So you'd say. Any.
It doesn't have to lead to harm necessarily, just with the intent to do so. You meant,
Well, if it's battery, there's been some harm that's already occurred. Now it's starting to get complex, isn't it? So there are a few different ways that this could be resolved. Then there's the way that it is resolved. How do you think it was resolved for this state? Well, we'll play with some scenarios. Not the chair so I can see. Okay. Stop share. I want to see a little bit. Okay, I can see. Okay. This is student X. That's all. Person's sitting right here. My hand on the back of the chair. It's probably touching the shoulder.
a little weird.
Anytime you have physical contact, it gets really, really. Ooh, here's something cool. Let me show you this. Maybe you like John Wick. My God, I did not see nearly enough hands come up on that one. You guys have really depressed me now.
Do you not watch them?
Okay, how about just Keanu Reeves in general? Yeah, like that. Yeah, he's my guy. One of them. Loves motorcycles, started building his own. Yeah.
There's a guy.
Keanu Reeves. Taking pictures with people.
Yeah, he never touches.
Yeah, let's make that a little bit. Of course, that's not gonna make it any bigger. Make it smaller, actually looks bigger. Hand right there. Let's share that for the people who can't quite see it online because it is kind of.
You know, there was a girl at my school, she could not watch SpongeBob, but she could watch John Wick.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so weird. Like, you can't watch a SpongeBob, which is a kid's show, but you can watch John Wick.
That is
Like,
really
they don't
weird.
get it,
So weird. There's a lot of weird people.
really.
Yeah.
Most people are weird in some regards. But yeah, you look right here, no touchy. Over here, no touchy, no touchy. Oh, no touchy. Of course, all these are male and woman. I'm sure that if you went and looked and found some guys, he'll do the same thing. Why? Because there's a very easy way to resolve it if you're gonna do this from a legal perspective. That is, you do run with this. Any degree of touching whatsoever. In here, maybe it is, right? But then start thinking about how refined how many times you come into contact with people in the course of the day and how many times that happens inadvertently, right? Walking some, boom. Okay? Was that battery or was it not?
Depends on how the person.
Back to feelings again?
I mean, if it was an accident, then I don't think that's a crime. I feel like if it's where like somebody doesn't want to be touched and you touch them, like no matter what, then
Or it
that's
keeps
where it
happening.
comes as
Yeah.
a crime.
I like where you're going. I'm
It's
gonna
like-
mess with it a
The
If you
little.
same
run
person
into, if
bumps
you
into
bump
you.
into someone, just say sorry and keep it pushing. I mean, it shouldn't be a crime.
How people should act.
But it's like, we were
You
talking.
know, it's really easy to regulate this stuff when people act like they're supposed to. Apparently most of us don't, I guess. It's like, that's one of the things that's kind of shocking to me. Like, what you're trying to go for, is you're trying to go for this. Right?
Right.
What truly, factually occurred? That's not what this is. This is who's got a stronger argument. That's a different game. Now, instead of this, you need this plus a strong argument for this.
And if there's like a teacher or something like, just happens to bump into you every single day.
Ooh, ooh. We talked about it in domestic. We didn't talk about that.
I've had
It's probably best posed on
5 teachers at my high school fired, male teachers.
Same.
touching that kind
I've
of,
had
yeah,
more than that, just for touching.
We are on my side.
yeah.
And it took a lot
If you
more
touch
than it should have.
anywhere up in here, or a security guard got fired too because he touched a student.
Yeah, well, it's like, in terms of how strict we can interact with people and what we can regulate, it's like, you know, this should give you a good idea for how much we can regulate, right? We can regulate that. We largely, as a society, we do go for this. That's why you only see the big ones that will usually get charged for this kind of stuff. That's almost another conversation. When we get into sex crimes, we'll have a conversation about more about relationships and then also about, God, there's so many things we need to talk about related to that. But like problems involved with the thresholds that we have and how they've changed over time. Because that's one which clearly evident in terms of, if you look at, when we talk about forcible rape versus rape as it's currently written in terms of statutes. Current form is better, but as you explain context and all that, it makes it all clear. We'll get to that in maybe next class or the one after. And may overlap the two. Any level, right? Any degree, any touching whatsoever is this, doing this. It's very, very hard to navigate what's real and what isn't. And then you come down to arguments and what we can show, what we can prove. Back to stats. Statutes. We're not gonna get the aggravated stuff just yet, so you got a couple of things going on whenever we start talking about aggravating circumstances. We talked a little bit about those. Here's where they start dealing with that a little bit. When you start moving beyond simple battery, you start involving a weapon, that kind of thing. Also, the degree of harm. We'll get to that. We'll go back. We'll start here now. That difference between assault and battery. As a general rule, is this, right? This is the more severe of the two. Both occur together. In almost all instances, you're literally looking at both together. And if you can't get this one, usually what ends up happening is that one will stay. Okay, it says here, An act by one who intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly causes injury to another, including spouse. We start talking about domestic stuff, we'll go heavy into the implications of that relationship, because historically speaking, that one has had some pretty wild implications related to crimes. Knowingly threatens with imminent bodily injury, intentionally or knowingly causes physical contact with another person. A person knows or should have reasonably believe others will regard the contact as offensive or provocative. Okay? Now we're back into what's reasonable. Making that argument, right? You have a strong argument. That argument will win. Immediate versus imminent harm. You notice here it says imminent bodily injury. Some of the murder ones will say, you know, grievous or imminent bodily, great bodily harm, that kind of thing. Immediate versus imminent, we need to talk about that for a second. Because, so we've talked a little bit about, okay, here are the thresholds in terms of behavior. Right? Anything that can be conveyed as a threat, interpreted as a threat, potentially puts you into this territory. Any touching can potentially put you into this territory. The relationships that you have with one another will have a bearing on this. So student, teacher, employee, employer. If you want to get to the domestic side, when we get to that, it'd be like, is economic abuse spousal abuse? Some places it is, right? You have one partner who controls all the money, the other one uses that control, or the other one is subject to that control. It's like, yeah, you start getting in that territory real fast. It's like, how many different aspects of individual relationships are subject to this? All of them. Now the time aspect, immediate versus imminent. What do you all think the difference between those two things is?
Active action versus like a promise, like this. I will do this, or I like doing it right now. Or like. Threats that are like, it to be later, like I'll find you or something, versus like I'm here with you right now and I'm about to harm you.
Yeah. Yes, you get into it, right? Immediate is right now, right? That's not just, you know, I'm gonna kill you, or I'm gonna whip you, it's the, you know, it's like, oh, that's coming right now, kind of thing, right? Technically, like, what I just did there, is that assault? It's in the course of a lesson, I would think not, but then you get that interpretation thing again. Maybe, it's like depending on your context, that could have been, right? It's really complex. It's right now is immediate. Think, take cover. Imminent. Later. How much later?
Promise of it in general.
Ooh.
And it, like the threat that like kind of like lurks around, like it could happen.
With that threat. That's another facet of it, right? Like we talk about in terms of one's physical capabilities, like when they say it, do they mean it? That's gonna be a facet of it. You won't see a solid number on this. Many facets of law that we'll run into. If I haven't pointed out this already, you'll see it in multiple instances where it's like, this has been identified as a factor. That time element is a factor. How much is it a factor? You're gonna have to weigh that based on each individual case. And so you might not always have specific timelines, right? But basically what you need is that it's sometime relatively soon, and this is high. Right? It's, okay. We'll do it this way. We talked about Tennessee versus Garner a little bit last class, right? Right. Yeah, it was the fleeing felon, shot in the back of the head for a purse and $5, right? Maybe more than $5, but it was single digits at any rate. That's not worth the line. Correct. All right, we'll wrap this up. In terms of the danger associated with that situation. You guys rate that pretty low, yes? Person's unarmed. Of course, you're not gonna know that at the time. The crime that they're engaged in is low level. What happens if it's something like, we'll say, there's already been a sex crime, a potential kidnapping, a motor vehicle theft, and they're armed, right? It's like, let's say this is in a span of like a day. Dealing with that person, like, are they presently, right now threatening? Maybe yes, maybe no. Is that danger associated with them? So much so that most people would reasonably take that and move on it. If so, that's this one right here. But we'll pick up there next time. I guess have any questions? Do you like doing it this way, or do you like going into the underlying stuff first and then this way? Okay, cool. Well, we'll keep doing that. We'll pick up Wednesday. Have a great day. And see you soon. Have a good one. And for those of you still online, I will see you next time. Bye.